There are two things you need to nail from the start in order to get the most you can out of your rowing workouts. The first is your technique, and that isn't something that you can fix immediately, and that is a separate video which we'll go into. The second, however, is something that you can fix right now and never have to worry again, and that is getting your drag factor to the right setting. Think of your drag factor like resistance, a bit like gears on a bike. In the higher gear you are on the bike, the more resistance you're going to feel, and the higher the number on the flywheel on the side, the more resistance you are going to feel on the rower, and obviously the same applies the other way. The lower the number, the less resistance. However, an important thing to point out and bear in mind always is that you need to do this on every individual rower. Number 6 on this rowing machine might have a different drag factor than number 6 on a different rowing machine in a different gym. If a rowing machine is newer, if it is better maintained, if it's been cleaned, if it's been taken apart and put back together recently, that will have an impact on the drag factor. So just because one machine, you have it on number 8 and that's the drag factor that you like to use, don't assume that that's going to apply to all rowing machines that you will ever come across. Going to hit the menu button and start at the home page, go to more options and then press display drag factor. Then you're going to take a few strokes and a number will appear in this gap. Here you can see me take a few strokes and I begin at number 1 as a demonstration and then I go all the way up to 10 and you can see how different the drag factor is from the lowest to the highest resistance on the flywheel. So that's all well and good. You now know what your drag factor is and where you can find it, but why does it matter in the first place and what should it be? Well, as a rough rule of thumb, the general advice seems to be that you want it between the range of about 100 to 130. So to give you an example, I'm around 6'3", anywhere between 17.5 to 18 stone, depending upon the proximity to Christmas right now, and I tend to use around 130. But a lot of this does come down to individual preference and the workout that you are doing. If you are doing shorter sprints, if you are doing shorter distances, then you can go for a higher drag factor and utilize that extra resistance to produce more power. Conversely, if you are doing a longer distance, if you are doing more sets, if you are newer to the machine, then you will probably be better off using a slightly lower drag factor. So I tend to use anything between 115 all the way up to 150 based upon my workout. But if you are much lighter, if you are not as strong, if you are new to using the rowing machine, then you might use a range between 90 and 110. You might go 80 to 100. If you are incredibly strong, incredibly powerful, and you're only doing short distances, then you might go close up to 170, even 180 drag factor. But the reason this matters in the first place is because having your drag factor unnecessarily high is only making things harder than they need to be, and it's not going to be the most effective way to utilize this machine. A lot of people complain about their arm muscles burning up, their grip giving out, or their lower back getting really fatigued when rowing, and half the time in my experience it's just because their drag factor is too high, and it's like lifting a heavy weight over and over and over again, so that rather than it being a cardiovascular exercise, it becomes a muscular one. And the opposite is also true. If your drag factor is really, really low, it can feel like you're not getting anything out of this machine because there's no resistance whatsoever. And for all you meatheads out there who did the same thing I did and assumed that because more weight on the bar is good for strength, more resistance on the rower is good for fitness, you couldn't be more wrong. This whole process literally takes 10 seconds. There's no reason not to do it. You just jump on the machine, you head to the home screen to display drag factor, you take a few strokes, you then change the drag factor to the number that you want it to be at, and you are good to go. That's it for today's video. I'll go into a basic technique breakdown on the rowing machine soon. But in the meantime, when you're next on this machine, test your drag factor, get it set appropriate to yourself, and I promise you, you will notice the difference straight away. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.